There are days when life tests a person without any warning, pushing them into moments they never asked for, yet moments that reveal everything about who they truly are. The day Marcus Hale walked into that small daytime diner with his 7-year-old daughter, he had only hoped for a quiet lunch and a few minutes of peace. He never imagined that it would become the day strangers whispered his name, that the city would speak of him with awe, that he would stand up in front of a group of grown men and defend a woman he had never met. He didn't know his entire past, every downfall, every hardship, every quiet bravery, would suddenly be seen and remembered. It all began at the wrong table, on the wrong day, with people who never imagined what kind of man was about to stand up in the middle of them. If you believe kindness and standing up for others still matters in this world, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel Heart of a Father. Your engagement helps more stories of compassion and second chances reach others. Marcus was a single father, raising his daughter, Aria, with more tenderness than he ever believed he had the capacity to give. Before her, his life had been a rough map of mistakes, struggles, and disappointments. He had worked construction jobs in blistering heat, night shifts in cold warehouses, and early mornings as a delivery driver. There were days when the world felt heavy, like he couldn't hold it together any longer, but every time he saw Aria's small hands wrapped around his finger, every time she whispered that she believed in him, he found the strength to keep going. That he had lost Aria's mother years ago. Not to tragedy, but to distance, to choices that separated paths that were once shared. She had left, deciding that motherhood was too confining. Marcus never resented her. He only told his daughter that her mother had gone to find her own path. He didn't want bitterness in Aria's heart. He wanted softness, strength, grace, everything he struggled to give but tried anyway. On that day, the diner was alive with light streaming through wide-open windows. The smell of fresh bread, sizzling eggs, and brewed coffee filled the air. It was lunchtime, clear skies outside, and people were moving in gentle rhythms. Aria sat across from her father, swinging her small legs from the booth's edge, humming softly while coloring on a napkin with the crayon the waitress had given her. Marcus smiled quietly, the warmth of the moment settling over him like sunlight. Then all at once, the world shifted. At the table beside them sat a woman who appeared tired, worn in a way that suggested more than just a long day. Her name, Marcus would later learn, was Helena Ward. She was in her early 40s, with hair pulled back into a messy low bun, wearing a soft beige sweater and jeans. Her eyes carried a dimness, like they had seen too many storms and not enough calm seas. She had come into the diner to escape, to collect herself, to breathe. Then the men entered. A group of 4, loud in their laughter, confident in the way people become when they believe the world bends around them. They were well-dressed, in clean button-down shirts and polished shoes. The kind of men who always knew how to fill space. They walked directly to Helena's table, even though it was clear she did not expect them. One of them smirked, leaning too close, speaking in a raised tone that carried across the room. It wasn't violent. It wasn't loud. It was the quiet kind of intimidation that wears a person down slowly. Helena tried to stay calm. She told them they were mistaken. She tried to rise and leave, but one of the men placed his hand on the back of the chair, keeping her seated. Not roughly. Just firmly enough to say she had no choice. Most of the diner went still. People noticed, but no one moved. No one wanted to get involved. Marcus felt a familiar pressure in his chest. A pressure he had known for years. He had been the one who once stood aside in life, letting things happen to him, letting the world decide for him. But not anymore. Not with Aria watching, not in front of a child who saw him as her world, not in a moment that demanded courage. He rose slowly. Aria looked up, her small face puzzled, soft voice quiet as she said his name, but he placed a gentle hand over hers and told her he would be right back. Marcus walked toward the table, heart steady, footsteps calm. He spoke without raising his voice, telling the men that the woman didn't seem comfortable, that they should let her be. He didn't threaten. He didn't posture. He simply told the truth. The men laughed. They saw a father in a worn t-shirt and work boots. They saw someone who didn't look like he belonged at their level. One of them asked if he was sure he wanted to get involved. He did not answer. He simply held his ground. Then came the moment. The quiet shift. The line that changes everything. The man blocking Helena's chair tried to push Marcus aside with a lazy hand gesture, as if dismissing him. Marcus didn't hit him. He didn't shove him. He simply took his wrist and moved it away, firmly, clearly, decisively. and the diner stopped breathing. Helena stood up, her voice trembling as she thanked Marcus. He guided her away from the table, helping her move toward Aria's booth where she could sit beside safety. Then the unexpected happened. The men recognized him, not from a local story. Not from gossip, they recognized him from a courtroom. Marcus Hale. The man who had once testified against a corrupt corporate developer in the city. A developer who had been tied to those same men. Marcus had been the whistleblower. The one who had spoken for the workers mistreated and underpaid. The one who had refused to take the money to stay silent. The one who lost his job because of it. The one who had been forced to rebuild his entire life from nothing. They knew exactly who he was, and suddenly, their laughter disappeared. Marcus didn't raise his chin. He didn't smirk. He didn't say a single triumphant word. He just returned to his daughter and the woman who now sat beside her, breathing out years of weight in one slow exhale. The diners who watched didn't clap. There was no dramatic applause. Just a hush. A silence made of realization. That a quiet man with tired eyes and calloused hands had shown them what dignity looked like. After a few minutes, the men left. No threats. No bravado. They knew better. Helena tried to speak, tried to explain her story, but Marcus shook his head gently and told her she didn't owe him anything. He simply hoped she found peace. She looked at Aria, saw the softness in the little girl's eyes, and whispered that Marcus was a rare kind of strong. A strength that doesn't need to be allowed to be real. As days passed, word spread. People began to speak of Marcus Hale. The diners who had stayed silent told others what they had seen. Not just a man standing up for someone, but a father who taught his daughter how to live with courage. Helena contacted local community leaders. She shared how Marcus had helped her. And soon, one of the city council members asked to meet him. They offered him work. Not just labor, not just another job to survive, but a role to help guide community programs for single parents and working families. They wanted his voice, his experience, his integrity. Marcus hesitated at first. He wasn't used to being admired. But Aria, with her tiny hands and bright hopeful eyes, told him that she believed he was born to help others. That he had always been helping, just without recognition. Marcus accepted. Slowly, the life that had once been heavy began to feel filled with meaning. Not perfect. Not wealthy. But whole. He remembered that day in the diner often. Not because of the men. Not because of the fear. But because of the moment he knew who he really was. A man who refused to let the world turn cold. A man who would always stand. A man who would teach his daughter that kindness is not weakness, and courage is not loud. If this story has touched you, if it reminded you that there are still ordinary heroes in the world, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Heart of a Father. Your support helps spread the message that one choice, one moment, one act of compassion can change everything.